In this video, we will be analyzing Americans experiencing culture shocks in Germany. I'm an American who's been traveling the world and living abroad for nearly 2 years, so not only will I be comparing Germany to the USA, but I'll also be comparing Germany to all the other countries I've been to. So thankfully, I've never been in a position really anywhere in the world where I have broken something or dropped something at the grocery store. But in the US, there is a saying, if you break it, you buy it. Whereas it seems like in Germany, I don't know about the Netherlands or other European countries or even here in Southeast Asia, that's not the case. There's no you break it, you buy it culture. And that honestly is very, very nice. Because mistakes do happen. Dutch portion sizes. Oh my god. I just ran into that branch. Pay attention where you walk. I'm not going to cut that out. And people make mistakes at the most inopportune times. People don't just plan on making mistakes at 4 p.m. at home. No. Mistakes are mistakes because they're unexpected. Now, I will say, if, let's say, for example, you're test driving a car and you crash the car, then yes, there should be some type of repercussions. But if you just drop something at the grocery store, a food item or something like that, I mean, that shouldn't really be that big of a deal. This person right here said, meanwhile, in Indonesia, you break it, you buy it. So evidently, it's not just an American thing. I'm filming this video from Vietnam and we actually just left Thailand. Haven't been to Indonesia yet. But again, I've never been in a position where I had to find out for myself if that is a part of the shopping culture here, but I always try to assume that it is, and I generally try to be very mindful of how I handle certain things. I always use the basket. I'm never trying to carry a whole bunch of items at once because I don't want to find out. Something else that I find interesting, kind of going a little bit off topic here, but I've heard that groceries in particular are actually fairly cheap in Germany compared to the Netherlands. This is mind-blowing to me because I found groceries in the Netherlands to be fairly cheap compared to the USA. In fact, very cheap compared to the USA. So, how much do groceries cost in Germany? Now, as far as sitting on toilets to pee, that is something that I have not encountered anywhere that I've been. I've never encountered any bathroom that had that rule in place. But as someone who used to work at a restaurant and has cleaned my fair share of bodily fluids of all different kinds, unfortunately, I see why this rule would be a good thing. Granted, I feel like generally in public restrooms you would have a urinal. So I don't know if urinals just aren't as common in Germany, but in public restrooms, maybe unisex restrooms, where you have a toilet and that's it, I can actually see this being a pretty good rule for the people who have to clean up the bathrooms. Granted, even a rule like that may not necessarily guarantee that those people will have a fun time cleaning those bathrooms. Speaking from experience, I am traumatized from the stuff I had to clean in those restaurant bathrooms. But at the very least, this should minimize the effect, because if you're a man watching this, you know sometimes, and this might be TMI, but sometimes you go to pee and it just doesn't go the direction that you expected it to. I don't know why that happens. Okay, I'm 25 years old. I still have yet to find a reason why this occurs, but that is a real thing. What I want to know also is, going back to the topic of grocery stores, is it normal to have public restrooms in the grocery stores in Germany. Because I found that in the Netherlands, they don't have restrooms in the same way that you would have in American grocery stores. In order to use the restroom, you have to find a staff member and ask them to be escorted to the restroom, which will be in the back stockroom. So I always feel like a VIP whenever they escort me into the back and they lift the little garage door up. But in the US, that's just not a thing. In the US, you're pretty much always going to have a restroom in the store, even in a smaller store.
This would have been a big culture shock for me as an American who's partially been living in Germany. As I said in the last video, I live in New York, but my boyfriend plays basketball over here, so I'm visiting very frequently. First, I've already gotten bullied for this, but don't wear activewear outside of the gym here, meaning you're not walking the streets in your cute little workout set. I learned this one the hard way. People here go to the gym, change into their workout clothes, always shower after at the gym, and change back into regular clothing. In the gym I specifically go to, you're not allowed to wear your outside shoes in the gym, so you have to bring a different pair of tennis shoes to wear in the gym. As an American, I like to go to the gym in my workout clothes, leave the gym, go home and shower using all the products that I need, change and do anything I need at home. As a gym girly, this one's very different for me. Kind of going off of that, you do not wear your workout clothes in the sauna, which I actually prefer. And when I go back to the States, I'm gonna miss being completely nude in the sauna. I do think Europe does it right when it comes to the saunas. But when we were in the Netherlands last year, I was in the sauna full workout clothes by myself and a bunch of just full naked men walked in and I was like, oh, I thought I was in the wrong sauna for a second. Definitely a shock for an American. When it comes to whole milk, they say cow milk, which I think is really cute, but it just took me off guard. A cute sweat set is not something you wear here. Whenever they leave the house here, they look put together, no sweatpants, no pajamas, no comfy clothes like that. It's jeans, sweater, you look put together. That's something I don't particularly love just because I like to be comfy, especially during the fall season. And like, what if I'm going to get like an early morning coffee? I just want to throw a cute little sweat set on. It's not really found acceptable here. Side note, I've been obsessed with these Ilia lip pencils for so long now. They give such a natural blended liner look. Last thing for now, but most shops, grocery stores, restaurants, stuff like that is closed on Sundays. Coming from New York where everything's open 24/7, that was very new to me. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. I love you all.
I've never been to Germany before, but I did spend 14 months living in the Netherlands. And in my time in the Netherlands, I do feel like it was exceedingly rare to see people wearing gym clothes out and about. My theory as to why this is the case, and let me know if you disagree and you feel like it's different in Germany, but I feel like gym culture overall is much less prominent in the Netherlands than it was in the USA. Growing up in the USA, I feel like that was kind of a badge of honor, especially amongst men. It was really a badge of honor to be the guy who was able to bench press 100 kilograms and just lift all of this heavy weight that other people aren't able to lift and have the muscles to show. And generally, gym clothes show your muscles. I feel like in the Netherlands, people, even the ones who did go to the gym, the ones that I saw very frequently at the gym, they didn't really pattern their whole lives or their self-worth around the numbers that they were able to lift or how they looked with their shirt off. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, just like with any culture shock. But I do feel like, by and large, the gym was more of a supplemental hobby rather than a core hobby for most Dutch people. Now, again, it might be different in Germany, but even just the concept of showing off and wanting to show your muscles, wearing tight-fitting t-shirts or tank tops, things like that, I pretty much never saw anyone doing that in the Netherlands. So I'm kind of going to assume that Germany also has a culture of modesty and humility in this regard. Because even at the gym, it was very rare to see young men wearing tank tops. That blew my mind, and I kind of felt like I was maybe being a little bit showy by wearing tank tops, even though personally that's just what I feel the most comfortable working out in. That took me some getting used to, just seeing that even in the summer where they had that very, very weak AC in the basic fit in the Netherlands, people were still wearing t-shirts. So again, I think it's more just a product of modesty. Now, as far as outside shoes in the gym, that was not a thing in the Netherlands. I feel like, generally speaking, most people showed up to the gym wearing not just their gym clothes, but their gym shoes as well. And it was never really an issue. There wasn't a separate area where you had to put your shoes or anything like that. Gym culture, by and large, is very different, I feel like, in the Netherlands than it is in the US. And I'm going to assume that by extension, it's also very different in Germany than it is in the US. I assume that German gym culture is more similar to Dutch gym culture than it is to American gym culture. Let me know if you disagree in the comments and why. Speaking of gyms and gym culture and clothing at the gym, clothes in the sauna. You might be wondering, what does a sauna have to do with the gym? I think this is where a lot of the discrepancy comes from, where Americans are mind blown that Europeans are just naked in the saunas. In the US, now mind you, I've never set foot in a sauna, and quite frankly, I don't really have the desire to. Maybe I'll try it one day just for novelty's sake, but I don't like heat at all. The only time I ever really saw the sauna in the US was at the gym. Generally, when you went into the locker room, at least at the gyms that I went to, you went into the locker room, which of course the locker room is divided by gender. They would have a small sauna pretty much in the middle of the locker room, along with the showers, the lockers, so on and so forth. Again, I never went in the sauna, but I could see through the glass that people were still wearing clothes. Generally, they were wearing their gym clothes because most of the time they were either going in the sauna to warm up, or they were going in the sauna to, I guess, sweat a little bit extra and burn some extra calories after their workout, which personally, that does not sound pleasant at all to me. Going in a sauna right after working out sounds miserable, but to each their own. I feel like in Europe, it seems like saunas are just their own separate thing. And come to think of it, I don't remember there being a sauna at Basic Fit. Maybe there was, and I just didn't know of it because, again, I'm not really a sauna person. But it just doesn't seem to be a thing to work out and then immediately go into the sauna in at least the Netherlands. Let me know if it's different in Germany. Another difference that I noticed between the Netherlands and Germany, at least based on what I've heard about Germany, is the whole idea of shops being closed on Sundays. I heard a lot about this before going to the Netherlands. I heard about this as more of a general European stereotype, and I do feel like in some countries that I have been to, that has been the case. In the Netherlands, that was most certainly not the case. And it's not like I was staying in Amsterdam or Rotterdam or places like that. In fact, I didn't even visit those places. I was staying in towns that had a population of anywhere between 12,000 people and around 50 to 60,000 people. So relatively small towns. And the stores stayed open on Sundays. Granted, I do think that they closed a little bit earlier than usual, but they most certainly stayed open. I was actually, for a good portion of my time in the Netherlands, in what would be considered the Bible Belt. So these are towns that are fairly religious by Dutch standards, and the stores were still open on Sundays, at least the grocery stores. Now, one thing that always confused me was people talk about grocery stores and just shops in general being closed on Sundays being good for work-life balance, which I agree with actually. I say that as a former retail worker. But then the restaurants are not closed. And I do feel like that's a bit of a double standard. And if you don't feel like it's a double standard, please explain why in the comments. Because to me, I get the idea that you should be able to spend time with your family and go out and do things on those Sundays, because that's the whole point. Aside from the religious implications, it's also to spend time with your family, but why don't the restaurant workers or the movie theater workers get that same opportunity?